Tshepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
Africa World Hour is here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. A warm welcome to you. Welcome to it, the Wednesday edition of Africa World Hour from 9 to 10 every weekday, Monday to Friday, as we bring you 60 minutes of the very latest news from the heart of the continent to all corners of the globe. One planet, countless stories as we bring you the voices, the news and the perspectives that matter. And we'd like to hear your perspectives on some of the issues that we're covering. So please do reach out to us. Let us know what your views are. And of course, you can stream in live to the DSTV channel. We are on 802, the audio bouquet. And of course, we are live on YouTube and the OpenView channel. Right now, let's start with your top stories.
Tshepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
We start in Ghana, where the government there has confirmed that its defense and environment ministers have died in a military helicopter crash. The deadly accident happened in the southern Ashanti region. The late ministers also died with 3 other officials and 3 Air Force crew. The government has expressed its condolences following the tragedy. Kaelihle Khumalo has more on that.
Ghanaian President John Mahama's Chief of Staff, Julius Debris, described the incident as a national tragedy. He has announced that Defense Minister Edward Omane Boma and his environment counterpart, Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, have died in the helicopter crash. President Mahama has also expressed his condolences to his comrades and servicemen who died in the service of the West African country. Earlier, Ghana's armed forces indicated that the radar contact had been lost with Z9 Air Force helicopter.
And the medical charity MSF says living conditions of nearly 400,000 refugees in Ethiopia's Gambela region are rapidly deteriorating due to significant aid cuts from key donors, including the United States. It says nutrition services in most camps have been suspended. The BBC's Will Ross reports.
MSF says there are now many empty buildings in the refugee camps because NGOs that once provided essential services have pulled out due to aid cuts. It says people are now receiving less than a third of the calories they need. MSF has seen a sharp rise in the number of young children in its therapeutic feeding centres. The UN says across the world, women and children are being hit hardest by the cuts.
And the Department of International Relations and Corporations in South Africa says it is against the use of symbols and the South African flag by former President and Umkhonto weSizwe Party leader Jacob Zuma during his recent meeting with Morocco's Foreign Affairs Minister Nasser Bourita Engrabat. The department spokesperson Crispin Piri says while they recognize the sovereign right of Morocco to invite individuals and groups, they are against the use of the South African national symbols.
South Africa has indicated to Morocco that the display of national symbols inherently conveys official state endorsements and elevates the perception of the encounter to that of a state-to-state engagement. This characterization is inconsistent with established diplomatic protocol, as the participants did not represent the official positions or engagements of the South African state.
And moving on to other news, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff hikes on India, taking the overall rate to 50% over India's purchase of Russian oil. In the order, Trump said that he had found that India was currently directly or indirectly importing Russian federal oil, with the new tariff rate expected to go up and into effect in 21 days. He also threatened new sanctions on Russia by Friday if Moscow didn't take steps to end the war with Ukraine. Show Bryce Peace has more.
Trump said earlier that India was not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, but that they were also selling it on the open market for big profits, and that they don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. India's foreign ministry warned that it would take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interests and economic security. He also imposed a 50% levy on imports from Brazil, Latin America's largest economy, over political considerations and Trump's support for former President Jair Bolsonaro.
And moving to Poland now, where a nationalist former historian has been sworn in as its new president after his narrow victory in June's election. Karol Nawrocki campaigned under the slogan "Poland first, Poles first," something he made clear in his address to Parliament.
Both in discussions with the Polish government, in my decisions and in the international arena, in a diplomatic manner, I will of course support relations within the European Union. But I will never agree to the European Union taking away Poland's competences, especially in matters that have not been included in the European treaties.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
At 7 minutes past 9, we continue with an update of what's happening in and around your world, from Africa to the world, the very latest on some of the top stories that we're reporting on, and of course other international news agents are doing that as well. One of the stories that we'll be talking about today is gunmen in Nigeria having abducted at least 45 women and children in an overnight raid of 5 villages. We've been talking about the plight of women and children, not only in conflict situations, but we've also been telling you about how they've been affected by displacement and drought. So all that coming up here on Africa World Hour. For now, we start with this. South Africa saying it will always seek to promote the use of nuclear energy for development and peaceful purposes. That's according to the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperations, Alvin Boertes. He was one of the speakers at a public seminar at UNISA in Pretoria. It was titled The United Nations at 80, the Post-World War II Peace Architecture and the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. In August 1945, the world witnessed the horror following the first use of atomic weapons against the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Bonolo Mariba has more on that anniversary.
The world is marking 80 years since the devastating atomic bombing in Japan during the closing stages of World War II. The bomb dropped on Hiroshima and killed about 78,000 people instantly, and by the end of 1945, the number of people who died had risen to 140,000. The US dropped a second bomb on Nagasaki on August 9th. Now, in a world that is facing different challenges to those of the 1940s, Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Alvin Boertes, says that nuclear energy should only be used for development and peaceful purposes.
Never again should nuclear be used for maiming and for killing humankind. Nuclear should be essentially for development purposes. So the Pelindaba Treaty follows our voluntary decision as South Africa to forego of our nuclear arsenal. And the Pelindaba Treaty is the sum cumulative total of the aspirations of the African continent, known as the Common Africa Position.
The seminar at UNISA is held at a time of renewed geopolitical tension in the world. Boertes says that Pretoria will always promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy.
When we discuss the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, it obviously straddles around 3 fundamental pillars. It looks at the prohibition of nuclear weapons, it looks at the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, and more importantly, it looks at the essential importance of nuclear for development purposes.
This is the sentiment that UNISA Vice-Chancellor Professor Puleng Lengabula echoed when talking about the use of nuclear weapons.
We still have double standards in how we treat the member states within the United Nations, those who own and those who do not own or who possess nuclear energy or nuclear materials. There are still countries that see themselves as the domains of implementation or uses, whether of nuclear energy or bombs, in our world. And that, for me, is a terrible challenge to peace, or to the pursuit for peace and security in our world.
As the deadline of the imposition of sweeping American tariffs on a number of countries approaches, Reuters remains optimistic that they will reach a deal with the U.S.
We are seized with the task of trying to produce a trade deal that will be acceptable to our strategic bilateral partner, the USA, as well as to the South African people. So we are confident that we will actually be able to broker that type of a trade deal that will be in the mutual benefit of South Africans and obviously the American people.
The Deputy Minister further says that there should be a common responsibility to reduce the risks of nuclear war to ensure peace and security in the world. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News, Pretoria.
And that brings the time to 12 minutes past 9. A very good evening to you. If you've just joined us, you are listening to Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Now, let's tell you about one of the stories that we're looking at. We've been pretty much speaking about it over the weeks, over the months, as these developments continue, and they worsen. We're looking at the plight of Sudan's children. They're facing a deepening crisis, with UNICEF now warning of irreversible harm if urgent action is not taken to reach them. Millions are at risk due to the ongoing conflict and worsening living conditions. Access to basic services like food, healthcare, and education is becoming increasingly limited. Joining us now to speak about this is Sheldon Yett, UNICEF's representative in the Sudan, to share what's been happening on the ground. A very good evening to you, Sheldon. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I believe the description of these children in particular has been that they've been reduced to literally skin and bones.
Absolutely, and nice to be with you. I'm actually joining you from Port Sudan. And indeed, Sudan is a massive country, as your listeners know well, but we have these pockets of malnutrition, pockets of famine. And in those pockets, these children are in extremely poor shape.
And just talk to us about the areas that you've covered. As you mentioned, Sudan is a very big country, and some of these regions are worse affected than others, or countries, should I say.
Absolutely correct. I mean, the Darfur, for example, a region which is roughly the size of Spain, to give you an idea of how big it is, particularly hard hit. Many of the epicenters of malnutrition are there. I just came back from Khartoum. One of the neighborhoods there, Abu Julia, or Jabal Aurelia, is one of the two localities in Khartoum state which has been identified at being at extreme risk. It was an area that was really in the center of conflict, and where children were cut off for many, many, many months. And now we have access, and we're seeing mass demand from mothers wanting to bring the children for basic nutritional support.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of access, that's not even easy to come by, because there are vast tracts of desert land for some of these women, children, or displaced people to reach. So tell us about the level of access in the face of not only the continuing conflict, but also reduced aid.
Well, exactly. And it's not just that, it's also the fact that Sudan, as we mentioned, is such a vast country with very poor infrastructure. And we're now in the beginning of the rainy season, and roads that are passable in one day become massive lakes on the following day after a heavy rain. So that makes it difficult. We also, of course, need to negotiate with the government and all parties to the conflict to get our supplies where they need to go. We can't just put 60 tons in the back of a truck and go. You need to get permission. That takes time. It takes lots of negotiation. We have to often negotiate our supplies across lines and across borders.
Mm-hmm. And how many if you are able to tell me about some of these health centers that you perhaps manage or are able to set up, whether some of them are mobile or not, are you able to help or even treat, say, within a day or even within a monthly period, the numbers that you're seeing?
Indeed, it really depends on access there on the centers. What I can say is that we have health centers run by our partners, run by the government of Sudan, run by others all around the country. The issue is not their ability to treat per se, but the ability for women and children to get to the centers, and also the steady flow of supplies. You had mentioned the aid cuts. That has had an impact on us. It's had an even greater impact on our partners. It means that the continuity, the supply chain, is not as strong as it could be or should be.
And the infrastructure has also been continually decimated over the past couple of months as a result of the conflict. The situation is clearly dire, as you keep warning, and every time I have conversations with aid agencies like yourself, I keep asking myself just how much more worse can it get? So talk to me about what you're seeing, what you're anticipating.
I mean, it's pretty bad, and I've been in emergencies all around the world for some 30 years, and this is one of the most complex ones and one of the most difficult ones to provide the kind of support. And I'll be frank, as long as the fighting continues, we're going to see more of this. We've passed the second year anniversary, we're into the third year, and the conditions get worse by the day. As long as health centers are hit, as long as schools are hit, as long as markets are hit, as long as children, families are hit, I'm afraid that we're going to get far worse conditions.
Sheldon, I don't want to be pessimistic. We always bank on hope, whether it's now or in the near future. What would help alleviate the situation? We were talking about an outbreak of cholera not so long ago. Water infrastructure having broken down. So it seems like a hopeless situation.
I don't think it's hopeless. It's never hopeless. But unless we have an end to the conflict, unless we have guaranteed access, unless we can get our supplies and our people where they need to go, unless they can be there for sustained periods, then yes, it's very difficult to provide the support and assistance that the children of Sudan urgently require.
We've spoken about many obstacles. A lot of them are big obstacles. What is the main one just in the near future if we're going to see a significant turnaround in the challenges that you're facing?
Again, it comes to access. We need to ensure that we get our people on the ground where they need to go, that we get our supplies where they need to go. Sudan is a vast country. Most places we can access. The hot spots are very difficult to access. I'm sure you've heard of ongoing siege in Al Fashir in North Darfur. We've been trying for almost a year now to get supplies to those areas. It's really, really, really difficult.
And what you need also is political will and intervention to protect healthcare workers, volunteers who are trying to alleviate the plight not only of women and children, the elderly, but those who are infirm as a result of injuries of war. Are there... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
No, please. I was going to say, are there negotiations underway? What hopes are there of getting an ear of someone to help protect healthcare workers or volunteers?
Well, I mean, it isn't just healthcare workers, it's teachers, it's all humanitarian infrastructure. And of course, targeting humanitarian infrastructure is a violation of international humanitarian law. We need to keep people accountable. We need to remind people of that there are consequences to doing this. Yes, we talk as UNICEF to those who are parties to the conflict, but of course, the violations do continue, and we need to see an end to these violations. We need to see those people who are conducting them, held accountable.
Well, Sheldon, thank you so much for speaking to us, and we wish you luck and courage as you continue about your work. Sheldon, it is UNICEF's representative in Sudan. urging the world not to look away as millions of children face a deepening crisis. And as you know, here in Africa World Hour, it's something that we have been updating you on a daily basis, and it's quite heartbreaking to see and report on. And here's to hoping that the situation does turn around sometime soon.
Channel Africa, where every moment is an African celebration. Feel the energy, feel the connection. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
She builds, she leads, she rises. This August, join Channel Africa in celebrating the women who shape our communities, shift narratives, and carve out a future on their own terms.
These women together ought to be able to turn it right again.
From Cape Town to Kigali, Lagos to Lusaka, African women are rewriting the script. Here's to courage, creativity, and unstoppable progress. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
22 minutes past 9, and we'd like to hear your perspective wherever you are, where you're listening from, wherever you're watching from. Please let us know your thoughts and also inform us on what's happening in and around your world, the conversations you're having, what's shaping your opinions. Reach out to us. We are on social media at Channel Africa One. That's on X, on TikTok, on Instagram. We are also on YouTube on that handle and on Channel Africa on Facebook. So we continue with ongoings on a political front in South Africa. We're speaking about the government today requesting a delay in damages claims brought by families of victims of apartheid-era human rights abuses. This case involves survivors and relatives of those who experienced significant injustices, including the families of the Cradock Four. Joining us now is Zaid Kimi, Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights, which supports these families. We speak with him about what this delay means for the ongoing pursuit of justice and, of course, healing. A very good evening to you, Zaid, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Is it a no-brainer to say, surely this must have been a disappointing development?
Well, the disappointing development was that the state, the president and the other applicants today argued that the court action should be delayed while the Commission of Inquiry completes its work. So it was disappointing to have that application, but I think we answered the question effectively in court today, and we are quietly confident that the court will rule in our favor and allow our case to proceed, while at the same time allowing the Commission of Inquiry to complete its work.
So the significance of this move, if you could just tell us more about it and what it means not only for the families, but the journey that they've traveled and their legal representatives have journeyed in order for their stories to be heard, and they're struggling to end.
Yeah, you must remember that many of these cases are between 35 and 55 years old. And so that family members have been pursuing justice for a long time, firstly under the apartheid government, And then once the Truth Commission had completed its work, they continued to seek justice for their family members who had in many cases given their lives. So these families already had to endure a lengthy period, some 15, 18 years, where no action was being taken by the state. And when the state finally begins to act, post-2017, often it's too late. The perpetrators have died or witnesses have died, and seeking any further justice is well nigh impossible. So at that stage, I think the families pivot and they ask for this commission of inquiry and the payment of constitutional damages for the harms that have been inflicted. And so it is disappointing that the state, while initially taking their case very seriously, then pivoted towards attempting to delay that justice by postponing the issue and passing it on to the Commission of Inquiry. And the families were very disappointed by that particular move.
And the state's argument is that the facts must be established. But, you know, on the one hand, we are speaking and framing what has happened as apartheid-era atrocities. So there is an acknowledgement that atrocities have occurred. So just in your understanding, why does the state feel that that legal process will then validate what has happened? Because it's part of our historical archives. We've seen it, we know, we've lived it.
Yes, the dispute isn't about whether the injustices occurred under apartheid. I think everyone accepts that. The question is, once the democratic state had an obligation to investigate and prosecute cases that were not granted amnesty, it did not do so. So our contention is that it's manifestly clear that no investigations or prosecutions happened, and that there was political interference that prevented any such investigation and prosecution. So this is not about whether the original crimes were committed. I think, you know, we are as one on that question. The question is, what did the state do when it had an obligation to pursue prosecutions and investigations of those who were implicated in those crimes? And when they did not do that, that action caused harm to the families, further harm to the families, because they had a reasonable expectation that justice would follow, and they were disappointed in that expectation. The state's argument is that we need to find more details about how this interference happened and who was responsible. And our argument is that we have sufficient information to argue that the harm has occurred and that it was a deliberate action. And while the Commission of Inquiry must get to those further details about who exactly was responsible, that doesn't in fact matter to the families in as far as their quest for constitutional damages is concerned. All they want is an acknowledgement that the harms occurred and the payment of constitutional damages for the state's failure to fulfill its constitutional obligations.
Is there room for a parallel process to occur? And I ask this perhaps out of naivete, but if you could just set me in the right on what would be ideal given, you know, this quagmire.
Yeah, I think we are committed to pursuing what you think of as a parallel process. We need to investigate and understand how political interference occurred. At the same time, where possible, we need to support families in pursuing justice for their cases, to the extent that that is still possible, whether that be through inquests or prosecutions, or in some cases, even private prosecutions. Those resources need to be available so that families can continue their quest for justice. At the same time, we need to understand how that quest was systematically undermined and who was responsible. So I think from our perspective, and certainly from the families, there's no contradiction between these two processes. We must continue the work. At the same time, those who thwarted the quest for justice must be held accountable for their actions.
And I know arguments were made in court which seem to point at the president of the country not wanting to choose where he stands on this matter. Is this the sentiments of the families, that they feel like they're not getting support if compensation is stayed?
Yes, I think the families would like this issue settled. Firstly, because many of them are getting on in years. A delay of a year may not seem like very much to you or me, but someone who's in their 80s or 90s is conceivably not going to be alive to see the end of that process. So they would like this issue settled in terms of constitutional damages. They'd like to see the state admit its liability and make the suitable recompense to allow them to search for justice. Any delay is a serious matter for these families. It's not simply a case of wait for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months and then something will happen. They've put in the hard work, and the legal team has put in the hard work to be able to argue that the matter can be settled now. And that's what our demand is, that the court process proceed. And if the state wants to oppose us on the actual facts of where the harm has been caused, they're free to do so. But they can't abort that process or delay it and say, wait for some other process to end. That's not what we want.
So just to end off, there are people who obviously would understand it or see it from the perspective of the families wanting a monetary reward. But what you are saying, and the families, what you've also just said, is that it's about the healing process. And I'd imagine that there'll be generations who probably would have been born, some who might even pass away without even getting an inkling of that justice against for their loved ones.
Yeah, I think it's important to make the distinction. The families are not asking for any form of personal compensation. They're asking that the money be paid into a fund, and that fund is available to support families in their ongoing quest for justice, and also to make suitable memorialization of their loved one's life and work. But this is not the payment to individuals as compensation. It's constitutional damages, it's compensation to a group, and that those funds will be available not only to the applicants, but to any family that finds itself in similar circumstance.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. Really appreciate it, and wishing you and the families all the best in your pursuit of justice and the journey that they continue to walk, a very difficult one. Saeed Kimi, Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights, speaking to us about the continuing court battle, the families seeking justice for apartheid-era abuses here in South Africa.
When the sun goes down, we don't stop the talk. Channel Africa, the best nighttime radio. The Upside, your afternoons just got even better.
Bantu Biko Street by Simpiwe Dana. Ndi ready. Simpiwe, 20 years in song. So what emotions come up when you hear that, hey, you've been doing this for 20 years now?
It almost feels like no time has passed, eh? I just, I know obviously time has passed, but I don't feel it. Even about my age, I'm 45. I always get shocked when I think, oh my God, in 5 years' time, I'll be 50. Because for me as an artist, it's almost like when you come to certain things, time stands still. And as a result, you find that a lot of artists are very childlike, which, helps them to always have a fresh approach to issues.
I tell you what, I'm feeling healed just by that.
We take no sides, none whatsoever. We are the Upside. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tshepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And that brings the time to 24 minutes to 10 now. It seems like our program has been today very sad about women and children being under siege, hasn't it? But we continue to report the news as and when it happens, and we get the latest on these developments. And this one is about this incident we mentioned earlier on in Nigeria of gunmen abducting at least 45 women and children in an overnight raid of 5 villages in the northwest parts of the country. It's the second mass kidnapping in the area within days. The attackers returned to Sabongaren Damri on Monday and raided nearby villages including Sade and Tunga. Almost amongst others, the incident followed a separate mass abduction in Sabongaren Damri in Zamfara state. That was on Saturday, in which 70 people were taken. To speak a little bit more about this, we're joined by Dr. Diyeli Agbe, criminologist, global security consultant and lecturer at the Caleb University in Lagos, Nigeria. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Dr. Agbe.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any new information on whether it is the same grouping, the same protagonists who were behind these mass abductions and the motive behind it?
Okay, we have not gotten feedback. We have not had any from national security advice to the president. The national security advice to the government, and the government has not come out. The military not come out to the bodies. I know very don't really come out to look as if they are.
Dr. Aiba, I do apologize for interrupting you, but I'm going to have to because the line...
A national geography in Nigeria now, at a period...
Dr. Aiba, I do apologize, but I'm going to request that we try again because I really am struggling to hear you. And it's very important information that we need to hear from you on what exactly is happening. As we mentioned, gunmen in Nigeria abducting at least 45 women and children. That follows another incident in which 70 people were taken.
Nighttime radio, just the way you like it, on Channel Africa, where the night comes alive. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tshepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And that brings the time to almost 20 minutes. Chitin will continue with the latest update on the security situation in West Africa, particularly in the northwest part of it, where there have been mass abductions. So we will speak to Dr. Diyeli Aibe in just a moment. But SABC Sports brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and, of course, ultimate World Cup glory in 2019, starting 13th of July, 7:30 on SABC2. We've been seeing people tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and, of course, the heroics that made rugby history. So you can stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere, with no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Channel Africa, where every moment is an African celebration. Feel the energy, feel the connection. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tshepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
All right, and we continue our conversation now with Dr. Diyeli Aibe, criminologist and global security consultant and lecturer at the Caleb University in Lagos, Nigeria, about the latest mass abductions that we've seen in the northwest of the country. A very good evening to you, and thanks for joining us again, Dr. Aibe. So the question I was asking, unfortunately, before the line cut us was, what latest information or intelligence has been gathered and disseminated, if at all, on who is behind these mass killings and what is the toll at the moment of those kidnappings?
Can you do without the video? Can we just do without the video?
Okay, Dr. Aibe, we will come back to you and see that we can work on that bandwidth and just make sure that we have a more stable line. Okay, so we'll continue looking at other occurrences. This time we look at what's happening in southern Africa the southern part of Africa. We will take you to Mali to let you know what is happening in a security situation there. That is Malawi and Zambia. They are the first African countries whose citizens must now pay visa bonds of up to $15,000 when applying for a B1 or B2 US visa for either business or visitors due to high overstay rates. That's what Washington says, and it follows a recent warning to 23 African nations to tighten their immigration controls. Malawi says it has not yet received official notice from the US. Channel Africa's George Mango has more from Blantyre.
The US government says from October 20, 2025, travelers holding passports from Malawi or Zambia must post a bond of up to $15,000 if found eligible for a B1 or B2 visa. While the bond amount will be determined during the visa interview process, the money would be returned to the applicant upon return or if the application is rejected. The US B1 or B2 visa is a non-immigrant visa issued for individuals who wish to visit the US temporarily for business, that's B1, or tourism and pleasure, B2 purposes. B1 visa, that is for business, allows individuals to visit the US for business purposes such as attending conferences, seminars or meetings, negotiating contracts or agreements, and is typically valid for 6 months but can be extended. B2 visa, which is for tourism or pleasure, allows individuals to visit the US for tourism or pleasure purposes such as visiting family or friends, sightseeing or vacationing, and valid for 6 months but can be extended. Some Malawians, like Kingsley Manza, want authorities here in Malawi to discuss with their US counterparts for a review of the visa bond amount, saying it is likely to affect those seeking education, business opportunities and medical care.
This is almost saying we don't want you here. Someone to raise, let's say someone is going to do is on an education visit or is on the business trip, so to raise a certain amount of money and also raise extra, and we're talking about $5,000 or even $10,000. That's a lot of money in Malawi. I think there should be a way to review, or maybe there's a better way of making sure that people, they don't overstay.
The US has since justified the decision on the basis that the policy is part of a pilot program established under the recently published temporary final rule aimed at addressing overstays recorded in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security during the 2023 Overstay Report. Washington further says all applicants from the two landlocked nations must also submit Form 1 to 352, issued by the Department of Homeland Security, agreeing to the terms of the bond. However, a tourism expert, Jean Kasunda, has spelled doom for budding traders who have just negotiated for trade links with their U.S. counterparts.
The implication is that the U.S. will limit the trade that happens, especially involving budding small-scale traders that ply goods between Malawi and the U.S. These trading activities will go down. And then, eventually, the perception among Malawians and Zambians about the U.S. will go down. Malawians or Zambians will no longer see the U.S. as a friendly country. However, the best thing that we can do as African states is to make sure that we improve the living standards of our people.
What has also been stressed is that payments are to be made via the U.S. Treasury, and the requirement applies regardless of where the visa application is made. Immigration and security experts in Malawi think the measure marks a significant shift in U.S. immigration enforcement toward certain African nations and is expected to impact.
That is now 13 minutes to 10 here on Channel Africa. You are listening to Africa World Hour here. I am Tshepiso Makwetla. Thank you so much for joining us and being with us for the past, 46 minutes if you have been with us. So we continue with the latest news out of the northwestern parts of Nigeria, where there have been mass kidnappings. We try again, and hopefully third time lucky, with Dr. Diyeli Aibe, criminologist, global security consultant, lecturer at Caleb University in Lagos, Nigeria. Good evening, Dr. Aibe. So has there been any more information on these mass kidnappings, who's behind them, and what possible motives are?
Okay, the government there's no any statement from the government now. Definitely in this part of the world, Nigeria, Nigeria is turning towards the general election 2027. A counter reaction to the government, so they will want to mitigate it, and they're trying to not to escalate it or create a wrong signal to Nigerians or the populace generally that the government is not up to the job. One of the constitution, one of the function of any government anywhere in the world is to provide security to the citizens. So the government will not want to escalate it. So the opposition parties or opposition will not use that against them, that the government is weak or vulnerable, and so the government.
Right, Dr. Aibe, if we still have you on the line, you point to something that has been reported in the run-up to past elections or even provincial elections, and that is the targeted kidnapping or attacks of
2013, precisely in Jonathan era. There were these Chibok girls that was kidnapped, and the Chi girls was kidnapping. So it's becoming a current thing for it was a general election period to discredit the government. And so I know the government, the president is experienced in this, a politician, a top, getting any intelligence report from the military, and how we can be able to mitigate it, not to escalate it, to create a wrong signal to Nigerians that the government is not really there for them.
All right. I'm going to give it one last try. Zamfara State in particular, what is the atmosphere, not just only around security, but political freedoms? Are there are there rooms for dissent around issues such as this, as you say, government not meeting its responsibility of protecting citizens?
The bandit has already taken hold of that not country. If you look at the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeast, it has now spread towards the northwest now, and bandits are taking, because it's a borderline within Niger, not too far from that axis. So Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, and those axes of the northwest has become like because their borderlines are very, very porous, and they have the landmarks in the north. In northeast and northwest part of Nigeria, very massive. So we made recommendation to government. They cannot use human security in our borderline security. You have to use technology, and this is train our law enforcement agencies, train our military. Naturally, our military are not supposed to come in this part of, because of the insurgency in the northeast, and it has escalated down to the northwest now, and it's turning towards coming to the north central too. So it's a new national chaos. I know the president is well experienced enough to know what to do, and stimulate the service chiefs or the commander-in-chief of the military, of the Nigerian military, the chief of army staff, to be able to know what to nip it to the bud quickly so it not escalate, because 2027 for the general election. So if the opposition get a hold of this negative thing, they will use it against the government. There is a coalition now between the opposition coming together to form a merger against the government to kick out the present government out of government. So this one coming up at this time again, it will really, really create a wrong signal that the government is not up to its responsibility to provide security to its citizens.
Has there been any indication of a departure from perhaps a direction or the efforts that President Tinubu's predecessor, President Buhari, may have taken? You speak about the use of technology from a security perspective. There was criticism of President Buhari of, even though he was a military man, he failed to exert enough strength and force over these bandits. Has there been an indication of a change of direction, or at least strength in his tactics by President Tinubu?
Yes. When he came in, when he was being inaugurated 2023, when he took over from the baton of leadership from the former president, one would have expected, like you said, really rightly put it, expected the former general, military general, to be able to smoke out the insurgents out of the country, but he couldn't do that. And I was telling some of my colleagues in the department here, in the criminology department, how the president spent about 11.18 trillion naira. That is the Buhari government from 2015 to 2020 was our defense budget almost about 11.18 trillion naira. So but he couldn't nip it to the board. When this present government came in, he made in his inaugural speech that our national security doctrine will be revigorated, and the welfares and the provisions of the military will be taken care of, and the use of technology will be the watchword of how to. But he has really, the insurgency, they have this coalition, the ISWAP, and the other coalition of the Boko Haram insurgency, the breakup, they're forming that synergy. They have this alliance with IS, and there's a breakup within the breakdown of Syria, and this splitting. That's why the Israeli government, when the new rebel leader took over Syria, they would say it's a vital weaponry which the Israeli government targeted, and not to give opportunity for ISIS to regroup again. But I don't know how swiftly that response were, and the effect of it, And the government was very reluctant to take that, to nip it to the port. We have the military has that firepower. The military by air. That's why you used to probably smoke them out. But I don't know, the political will of the government, ability to turn intention into action has been very, very not very visible. And the structure of government is not helping. The nepotism and the time it takes for you to give the command, the line of command, the chain of command, to give that is not really very, very swift, And then this feet dragging in the government, the political will has not been there. But I think the present government, Tinubu, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has the capacity because he's well experienced. He knows what he needs to do because if he doesn't do that, 2027 general election is coming. The oppositions are gathering over his head and trying to take him out. So he knows what he is under intense pressure now. So I know he'll be able to control, but I know they will not want to come out quickly or swiftly to probably give a statement. Okay. They want to see if they can mitigate it so that the opposition will not key into that negative narrative and send the wrong signal to the populace. And or the media will not probably send those negative signals that the government is weak or vulnerable. And he did promise to do that in his inaugural lecture, but in reality now Nigerians are seeing that he's not putting those intentions or putting those words into action now.
Dr. Diyeli Agbe, criminologist, global security consultant and lecturer at the Caleb University in Lagos, Nigeria, is speaking to us about the mass abductions that are continuing to worsen the security situation in the northwest part of the country, particularly Zamfara State. Brings the time to just about 4 minutes to 10, and we talk about what's coming up on Channel Africa after Africa World Hour. As you know, Shayla Ndukumana joins us now to talk about hotlines this evening. So what's coming up?
Hi, Tabisa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Listen, have you heard of romantic transactional relationships?
Isn't that what we're confronted with daily now?
I mean, here's the thing. One would think that it was implicit, right? So it's not something that's discussed at the very beginning.
I think it's the romantic part that confuses things. When you say romantic transactional, I think at what point is it romantic within the transactional?
So here's the thing. They frame themselves as a romantic couple, but they are explicit in saying at least one of the partners will give some level of value into the relationship, be it money, gifts, you name it. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to gauge, how do we tell romantic from transactional? Are they together? Are they combined? How do we bring definition into our relationships without firstly scaring our partner off, because we want to have this discussion, but also looking at the realities of the necessity for gift exchanges. These are real things. These are part of being in a relationship. Gifting each other, spoiling each other, helping each other with certain bills, you name it. And so when did it become transactional?
It's actually, if you think about it, it's romantic to have an explicit agreement of this is what we are in a world where there's so much uncertainty.
Okay.
You could be, and I have heard this, and I think we probably have come across such situations where you think you really are with someone and somebody says, oh, we're just hanging.
Oh, my days.
So maybe that's the romantic part of it, that you are of same mind in how you run a relationship. And some things have become transactional in what is considered a romantic relationship, that if your person does not do this for you, that they actually don't understand the art of romance, or they're just not that into you.
Maybe the reality is we need to redefine romance.
Interestingly enough, I read or watched a podcast a long time ago, and by a long time ago, probably it was just a couple of months ago, and this person was saying romance was created by men without money to compete with those with better financial resources. Because those with better financial resources don't have the time to be romantic. Wow. So enter the cad with no money who uses romance to lure the woman away from that financial security.
Yeah.
And I thought, very intriguing idea. And this person spoke very persuasively.
Listen, on that dreary note, that's what comes up on the show this evening.
Well, I suppose we've got the ball rolling.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks a lot for that. Shayla Ndukumana up next with hotlines from us. Good night.
Channel Africa, where every moment is an African celebration. Feel the